Let's go there.
Carol is needs to sign.
That's the one that Dave did today.
Oh, good. Are you it now?
He
Yeah,
is.
I mean, tag.
You're it.
Excellent.
And that finishes out
I
the year.
snicked out of my first week.
How was the wet?
Good. Like I was saying, I don't think there was really a snowstorm. There was no snow in it.
But you saw the mud. Yeah.
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 But that could have just been rain, right?
That's right. It was just rain.
It's only a movie.
Yeah, our driveway is a nightmare.
Thank you. Okay, we can
Andrew
pass that
Poulin
on
is
to Eric.
doing some stuff.
Take
Here,
a sip.
the new tree removal.
There you go.
Good
All right.
evening and
Yeah.
welcome to this regular meeting of the
Yeah.
Readfield Select Board on April 22nd, 2024. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:30. If you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Just a note to the public, we are not able to broadcast live on cable tonight. The meeting will be available online on the town website due to a technical issue. So I know you folks who might be tuning in can't hear me, so they
Thanks
can't, I
for
guess they
trying.
can't see me either, right? So I'm
So why are we
sorry.
telling them? Never mind, for the recording. right?
It's for the
All good.
recording, right? So we do apologize. So we have regular meeting items, 24/117 are minutes of the select board meeting of April 1st. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the select board meeting minutes of April 1st. I actually did read them and found absolutely zero errors or suggestions even.
I read them also, went and found no errors, but that's kind of typical.
I was wrong, Angelica. Somebody else did read them. Thank you, Steve. Greg Jurgen would be very proud of you.
You probably wish I could find something wrong with them.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Unanimous. Item 24/118 are warrants 43 to 46. And that would be me.
Cool,
So
you
let
and
me
cool.
slide down here and give you any highlights.
And 45 and 46 were the two you just looked at. So if you don't want to take those up tonight, that's perfectly fine.
Right, we don't want to take those up. The ones that we have are
43 and 44.
43 and 44. So 43 was a regular warrant and 44 was for payroll. Payroll was in the amount of $24,230.79. The total is $522,153.92. Highlights are, when I get this to scroll. We made a payment to the town of Winthrop. That was our annual payment for ambulance service. We made another payment on our plowing, our winter road maintenance. That was for $46,162. Not sure if I said the Winthrop payment was $55,000. I believe we have one more payment due on winter roads that'll come up this month. We paid the school $338,036. We actually had to order more salt for winter roads. That was $2,446. And I asked Eric about it and he says, well, I think it's all used up now. So that's good. We did have a payment of $1,035 to Jackie Druin. It's not a large amount, but I thought I would explain it. She bought, I think, 4 different items for the library through places like Facebook Marketplace or in-person sales, saving a lot of money and being able to get some good items. So that was a reimbursement, all with receipts. We made a payment of $10,721 to Goral Palmer for sidewalk design. 80% of that gets reimbursed to us from the state, federal government.
Federal
Federal
dollars
government.
through a state agency.
Right.
Yeah.
We paid Dave Morrow $2,964 for electrical work at the library to finish off the upstairs rooms. Alta construction equipment was, I believe, for backhoe repairs for the backhoe at the transfer station. And that finishes out.
I'll make a motion to approve the warrants as presented to the sum of $522,153.92.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is unanimous, and those were all previously signed by the board. Okay, the next item of business tonight is communications. We have select board communications first. If there's any general information any member of the board would like to present. The announcements, items of interest, Carol?
Excuse me, Saturday, April 27th is the drug take back at the transfer station from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I'm gonna put a sign on the fire department, just to let people know to get rid of all of their unneeded, discontinued medications that could be dropped off and incinerated.
Those are prescription medications, right?
Pretty much, yeah. It's everything else can be tossed into garbage, but yes, more than
Hopefully.
prescriptions. Yeah, that you don't want in your house, like narcotics, especially.
Great. I got an email that the library is doing a volunteer appreciation event, as this is National Volunteer Appreciation Week. So on Wednesday afternoon, I think they're having a little open house. If you were a volunteer at the library, please go and be thanked.
I was just gonna thank those volunteers that showed up yesterday to clear the fields for the upcoming youth baseball, softball season. There was a lot of families out there cleaning, raking, moving. So thank you to anybody that was able to participate and help.
Excellent. Anything else? I'll just make an announcement ahead of time. We're going to have roadside cleanup coming right up, but it's later in the agenda. So if you're listening, that's coming up. All right, we'll move on to staff communication. We have a treasurer's report, and the CEO quarterly report was included in the packet. Eric?
Okay. Before I do my treasurer's report, I'm just going to say that I really enjoyed my vacation. I appreciate you guys giving me some time off. But the craziest thing, speaking of volunteers, I was in the gift shop at Gettysburg, and my kids come up and say, "There's kids from Readfield here," and it turns out Hannah Flannery was there. So we said hello down in Gettysburg.
Oh, that is
A
hysterical.
little small world thing there, but yeah, it was fun anyway. But no, I do appreciate the time off and the patience with things being put on hold for a little bit while I did that. So, but the treasurer's report, check reconciliation. This is for the month of March. Was done through March 31st, and our accounts are in balance as usual, and no unusual activity. We have seen an increase in online registrations as people start to do more of that stuff, get ready for the spring. But that's just getting started. April is usually, and May are usually when things get really busy. So we'll see more of that in the future. Investments, our CDAR matures, one of them on April 26th. And that will yield about $6,600 in revenue and interest on that. So that $250,000 will be reinvested to another 6 to 12 month term. I need to work with Northeast Bank and maybe Androscoggin and see what they have for rates, but it's still looking right now like we're going to get above 5%, which is a healthy return and a good use of those funds. So that's going to be happening. And then the audit, we're essentially complete with the last 2022-23 audit. We're just waiting for the full final report, and that should be coming, I think, the end of this month. So that will be good, and we can move on to the next. So comments for the month of March, everything should be roughly 75% expanded. Of course, it's never the way, but that's a target that we're looking at. Journal entries are down for the month, but up for the year to date. And that's a trend we've been seeing. Really, we had a lot of activity early in the fiscal year, but just kind of normal amount for the month relative to other months. But let's see, real estate payments are sharply down for the month. of March, but that's probably due to when the due date was for taxes last year versus this year, because we're actually up for the month, or excuse me, up for the year to date just a little bit, which is what we would expect because the taxes were a little bit higher this year than last year. So we're actually on track for the year, but there's an anomaly there when it comes to the monthly variation. Transfer station revenues are up for the month and the year to date. That's positive, and that's also expected. We did increase those fees in January, and so that has been continuing to be a positive thing and to help offset the cost, but only a portion of the cost of running that facility. Motor vehicle revenues are improving. They're still down for the month, but even though they're down for the month, the rate at which they're down is less than it was previously. So things are getting a little bit better. I guess I'll put it this way, we're losing a little bit less month over month, but we're still going to come out, I think, right on track and maybe a little bit ahead with our budget numbers. We usually see more than our budget numbers, but this year we're going to be right there. And that's one reason why we did in the budget process lower our estimates for the coming year. And so that's kind of where those things are right now. Total receipts are down slightly for the month, but up moderately for the year to date. Maintenance expenses are higher than expected for the year to date, but that's due to heavy equipment and building maintenance. The libraries contributed to that, along with the 550, which is expected to be replaced in July now. We're going to be getting delivery of that in June and then setting it for upfitting. So that should be happening in the next first month of the next fiscal year. And then, but in the meantime, we're running it as little as possible, just trying to keep it out of trouble. And then the last point, road expenses remain high, but that's due to the storm damage we've had. And then everything else really looks to be on track in most departments. I didn't see anything that stood out. March was actually a pretty good month. So that's my treasurer's report.
I have one question.
Sure.
I really like the budget versus actual section, and that's for expenses. Could we also have one for revenue on the right?
I wouldn't recommend that.
Okay.
Because those things can be quite variable. I guess we could pick some key categories and try to pick some. I mean, so for example, we have the income indicators above that. And so those are oftentimes better shown as a comparison on a month-to-month basis as opposed to a year-to-date. But
I mean, we can look for it in the supporting documents, but I was just curious, like with motor vehicle revenues, it's up for the year, but this doesn't give me that quick look at, okay, so it's 458. What did we expect it to be?
yeah, okay. Well, so I could probably pull. I see what you're asking. I can pull a few of those key indicators because sometimes, I mean, revenues, we have a lot of categories, and the administration category accounts for probably 20 or 30 lines. So we want to pick and choose which ones. So.
Oh, I was just thinking of the 4 that are listed there.
Oh, okay. So do the 4 and then have a separate column for the budget for those. I can do that.
Right, just
Yeah.
so like real estate payments. Okay, we've gotten in this much. Oh, we only have 2,000 to go. Hey, that's really awesome.
I got you. Okay. I
That's
thought
what
you
I
were
was
asking
looking
for
for.
like a similar column to what we have.
Oh, no, no, no,
Yeah,
no.
okay. All
No,
right.
sorry, I wasn't clear.
Just for those pieces.
Just for those pieces. Yeah, I can do that.
Okay,
All right.
I mean, that's one of the reasons we did that budget versus actual, because it's hard to know, as you always point out, from one month in a year to the same month in another year.
Yeah.
There are different circumstances, so.
I'll
Great.
add that.
Anyone else? Okay, we will move on. The next agenda item is the CEO quarterly report. That was contained in our packet. Eric, is there anything you'd like highlighted from that report?
Yeah, I guess I was a bit surprised that we see growth plateauing a little bit. We haven't seen quite the pace. In years past, the last 2 or 3 years, we saw a lot of activity, but that's really starting to slow down now. We're seeing a bit more on the line of like small projects, small remodels, and a lot of things that don't require permitting. And so that I guess that's an indication that things are tightening up in the real estate market.
Or people are fixing all their damages.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a change there. The good thing is that, we're not seeing a very rapid pace of growth. That could change, but things have slowed down. I think it's more of a manageable level. The downside is that doesn't really help expand the tax base. And so when we have rising costs in a lot of areas, not having, a 1.5% or 2% growth in the tax base does have a big impact on what the rest of us end up paying. So that's just one thing to keep in mind, is that there's always that balance between growth and steady growth and reasonable growth and the tax rate, because those things are related. So yeah.
Yep, I have a question on that. I believe there was a quick mention at the end of 2024, there was a medical marijuana application. Is that still in play?
We have one that's existing, that's a renewal every year. So that's the Moon Glow up here across from your house, or not across, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Yeah, right there.
On Main Street.
And the other is the one that was Happy Campers. That was on hold because they had not submitted a complete application, but they are trying to resubmit with a complete application. So that my expectation is that will go through eventually, once they meet all the requirements. So.
Okay, and then one I thought was an interesting tidbit is Chip said that he has a list of maybe local contractors of all types, and he can't recommend anybody, but that's really good to know that he might have an existing list. All these people that need work done. I know people have come and gone, so I didn't know he was a resource maybe to get that, if people have renovations and need some places to call. So that was really helpful.
Yeah, no, he does. He has a short list. I think most of them are up on the website, but it's good to talk to the code officer for building projects because of things like that. But if he can be a resource in that way, it helps people feel less reluctant to maybe go get a permit, right? So I think that's a very good thing as well.
It was interesting to see the difference in the revenue from us updating those fee structures too. That's pretty significant change.
Yeah.
$6,000 in a year for, pretty big jump.
Yeah, it's helpful. The one thing I will say is that the marijuana licensing fees are a big chunk of our revenue. So having two in town does help offset the cost of providing those code enforcement services. And they do have to spend more time looking at those facilities and in some cases dealing with complaints. So I think it's justified, the revenue, but it does help with the cost of that operation quite a bit.
Anyone else? Okay, we had some minutes from boards, committees, commissions, and departments. So we received minutes in draft form from the Board of Assessors, the Budget Committee, the Planning Board. And we received a long list of approved minutes from the Conservation Commission from April, May, June, July, September, October, November, December, and January. So thank you for getting those all in, and maybe now that they're caught up to date, they'll be able to stay on top of it. That would be great. So thank you to all for doing that. That's valuable information for the public. And there's no member of the public here to report out on committees, is there? No. And we have 2 people online. Would that be correct? Is there anyone online who wanted to say anything for boards, committees, or commissions, departments? All right, so now public communication. Is there any member of the public online that wishes to communicate? How about input present? No. Okay, we'll move on to old business, and if someone decides they want something, just holler.
Can I ask, I don't know if that's Emily that's on, she's on new business for Kent's Hill. I don't know if she's one of the ones that are dialed in. We might move her up.
Hello.
Hi. Yes, we could do that. So I think I'm getting a request from Carol, since Emily is here from Kent's Hill School, we could take item, I have to find it, 24-119 out of order, if that is acceptable to the board.
Sure.
Okay. And Eric, you want to introduce us to this?
Sure. So these are fairly routine licenses every year. Kents Hill School comes to us at least once, if not twice, for special event permits. The officers of the municipality, you folks, review them and just generally give a straight face test to, is this somebody in an operation we want operating in town and an area where we want liquor available. So we typically would move forward with a motion to suspend any kind of public hearing on these, because we do always have that option, and it's best practice to just suspend any public hearing in case there's any concerns about that. And then you would move forward to vote. So I'll just make a note that the noise you're hearing out back is John Cushing dropping off his equipment for the septic repair. So I just got up and took a look, but that's what that noise is. So anyway, back to liquor licenses. And so we had two originally for two separate events. But we had some, I guess, discussion about whether or not the second application, which is June 7th and 8th, for a multi-day event ought to be one or two, or ought to have more detail included. And so I did speak to Emily, and she very graciously put together a second application, so split that application into two parts, so that we could have a clear definition between the 2 days and the events. There is the ability to have a multi-day event per the license. But I think that we want to just clarify, and it's good to have a discussion tonight about what level of detail we would want in order to be comfortable with a multi-day liquor license approval, right? Because that does open up a lot of possibilities, and I think that going forward, I would recommend that we just work with applicants to get a fine level of detail on the types of activities, the specific hours, and then we can have just one application for a multi-day event and not have the added expense of a second permit. But I think for today, it makes sense to have those two, but certainly I'll let the board discuss that. But I don't see any issue why both of these or all three of these applications shouldn't be approved. I did include the two that were one as a supplement to the select board packet. So if you wanted to look at that,
So that's online.
that's online.
Yeah, there's a
Yes.
supplemental.
So do we make a motion? Is that
Not
the
yet.
next thing?
You have to
Okay.
look at it.
And typically you'd give Emily a chance to
Packet
speak a little
supplement.
bit too.
Okay, it's on the main page. So the only difference is. So this is for the second application that was listed in the packet, has been split into two so there's an event on June 7th from 6 to 10 p.m. for serving liquor. And then there's an event on
June 8th.
June 8th from 5 to 11 p.m. where liquor would be served.
These are both for just beer and wine. There's no liquor.
Okay. I should have said alcohol.
Libation.
That's great. And I'm the one who had asked for that. I think what we had discussed last year and in previous years is having the specific times. So if the initial application had the times for each event, I think that's what Eric was alluding to would be appropriate for the future. So I had just asked if we could have them split just because I wanted to get them to you as quickly as possible. So here we are. So we have those two. And then the first one we should probably do first. And
Can I make a motion on that?
yes. And then we can have discussion if we need.
So the public hearing suspension would be probably
Oh, sorry.
ideally the first motion. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the liquor approval or liquor license for Kents Hill School on May 24th. And that's for a graduation,
We have to make a
pre-graduation.
motion.
We need to make a motion first to suspend having a public
Wait.
hearing.
Oh, sorry,
Public hearing.
go ahead, do that.
I don't
Oh,
typically
okay,
make
I'll make a
motions.
motion to suspend public comment,
A public hearing.
public hearing.
Is there a second? I have a motion and a second to suspend the public hearing for the alcohol license permit applications for Kents Hill School. Is there any discussion?
Is this for one event or for all?
Just one on May 24th.
Do you want to suspend the public hearing for one event or for all three events? Is that what you're asking?
This one,
Just the May 24th.
Okay,
and we'll approve that and move on. Is that
Okay.
okay?
all those in favor? Okay. Go ahead, Carol.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the liquor license for Kent Hill School on May 24th from 4:30 PM to 6 PM. It's a pre-graduation, like parental gathering.
That's good.
That's it. Yep.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Now discussion. Emily, did you discuss in this one, I don't remember reading it, if there will be students present?
There will be students present, but our bartenders are tip certified and they're faculty members. So we know which kids are kids and which parents are parents. So there shouldn't be any concern. If we see anyone drinking, that would be an even bigger concern on if they'd be the next day.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous, and we do have to sign each one of these, all of us, well, a majority of us, so at least 3 of us. Okay, and then we have 2 other applications that we had in the supplemental, so we either need to hold a public hearing or waive the hearing.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the hearing for the multiple day event on 7th through 8th of June at Kent Hill School.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, the hearing has been suspended. I would take a motion on there are 2 separate ones. They can both be made in one motion.
Make a motion to approve the liquor license for June 7th and 8th as presented in our supplemental materials.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
I just have a comment on the 2 nights, seeing it's at the same location with pretty much the same attendees. That's for a really large reunion. It seemed that would make sense that they might be combined just because it's the same gathering, same attendees at the same location. That's all I wanted to share.
Right, and that's what we discussed a minute ago, but they didn't list the times. And liquor can't be served between certain hours, so we really needed to have the times of the events on that first application.
So it's 11 PM, okay?
Yes, it
Okay.
states right on there, it's between 5 AM and 1 AM of the
Okay.
following. You can serve from 5 AM to 1 AM, not from 1 AM through the AM to 5 AM. And where they had listed that they were starting at 7 one night and going till midnight 2 nights later. I
Oh.
didn't think that was
Gotcha.
appropriate for this type of a document. So,
So the times are.
good comments, though. So next year, Emily, just put the times on there and you're all set with one application.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Can I make a motion to,
It's already been moved and seconded.
yeah, okay,
Just gonna vote.
suppose we already closed. the
Yes,
meeting.
right?
Yes, public comment,
Okay.
sorry.
So, all those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, so these will get passed around. So you're
Thank you,
all good,
Emily.
Emily, and
Thank
Eric.
you.
when
Thank
does
you,
she-
town officials.
Thank you.
Sign 2 spots.
you. Eric, when
Thanks,
can they be
Emily.
picked up?
Tomorrow.
Okay, awesome.
I'll be there. Thank you.
Good luck on both.
Thanks.
Okay. So, we'll go back to our regular agenda. So we are in old business, item 24-043, here and consider an update on the fairgrounds project. Is there any update? I guess that's Steve and Eric.
Jerry and I have been talking with a few folks who are interested in being on the fundraising committee. And so we are going to pull together just a preliminary meeting, just so they're ready to hit the ground running if the vote goes positive at town meeting. So we'll do that sometime in the next month or so. Just pull together folks who are interested in doing fundraising, just talk about process and what we might do when, assuming the vote passes. That's all I have. Do you have anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Great. Item 24-044, here and consider an update on the Church Road sidewalk project. That's Eric.
All right, yeah, so we're getting towards the end of the preliminary design process. And I did work over the past several weeks with a few different individuals and entities to look at the placement and the number of the speed tables. And so I spoke with Maine DOT, I spoke with Fire Chief Mank again, I spoke with the project engineer, also the road committee, and we discussed various options and how best to proceed with the project. And we did, after all that discussion, opt to remove the two sidewalk speed tables that were on either side of the raised crosswalk. So the final proposal that will be going forward in June will be including just one speed table at the crosswalk. So it will be a raised crosswalk. And the discussion was that, the incremental difference of removing those as far as safety went, was hard to determine. It is well known and recognized that having three tables like that in a row is better at slowing people down, but one also has an effect. The difference of going to zero would be to really remove that safety element and that traffic calming element that was important to a lot of people. And so the balance, I think, was to
Yep, we lost your.
just stay with the one crosswalk raised area. And that's 4 inches high and 20 feet wide. So that's something that you can drive over really at 25 miles an hour without having much of an impact. The fire chief had no objections to that. And actually he did ask why we were going from 3 to 1, because he said, 3 works better. When he puts out speed tables or speed things to help slow down traffic at scenes, they always do more than one, but he understood and was, fine with just the one table. So I did work with the engineers. We got that design revised, and so that's where we are right now with the design. And that's the last, I guess, big change that we've had, and probably the last one we'll see on that project was limiting the number of those. It's easier to add them in later if we decide to than to remove them. We could always start with temporary if we find that we're not getting the speed reductions that we expect or want. But at the very least, we can have one that will help, but won't overly impact traffic. So that's my update on the sidewalk.
Great.
I just have one quick question. So I know, like, at that crosswalk, we're gonna have a flashing light, which you can see from, I believe you can see clearly from the Union Meeting House, but coming from the other direction, is there something that the people coming from that side of town at probably higher rate of speed, is there some sign saying, hey, speed table or something ahead? Because it won't be visible.
If they're flying up over the hill, then they won't be able to see anything. But we will have signage for the crosswalk at the appropriate distance. The sight lines from the crosswalk to the crest of the hill is more than adequate to meet basic safety standards. We looked at that specifically, the engineers, they did all the measurements, calculations on speed. If someone's going 65, they're probably gonna have a hard time. But if they're going, anything less than 45, they'll probably be okay. But at the speed limit that it transitions from 45 or 40 to 25 there, they will be fine and have plenty of sight line to adequately slow down, provided that people actually push the button. And that's one of the reasons why those speed tables are important, because you have to plan for people not always doing the right thing. And when people get in the habit of slowing down just a little bit to get over that, then that does provide that safety measure that we're looking for. So. But yeah, we will have signage for the crosswalks in addition to the flashing beacons, similar to what we have right now for the crosswalks that are on Route 17. Yeah.
Eric, I noticed the other day that the sign that's there currently that says something like recreational fields ahead, most of the letters are missing, which is why I don't know exactly what it says.
I don't know what sign you're talking about, so I guess let me know and we'll replace it.
That's a new tactic to get people to really focus, think about it, and slow down.
So it's
Try
the
to put the
sign
pieces
heading into
together.
town at the crest of the hill on the right side,
Okay.
which would be the west side of the road. Most of the letters have come off, so, and I assume that was a sign we had made for us, so we just need it redone.
I will take a look at that. Yeah, absolutely.
While we're in that area of town, I noticed that the trash can is back out at the parking lot. That's awesome. We need the doggy can put back too.
It's all in process.
Ah, good. Want to take that poop and get rid of it. All right, moving on. 24-047, select board action item reporting. Does anyone have anything they've been working on?
Nope.
Carol already gave us an update earlier. Thank you. All right. Item 24-116, consider the charge and structure of an open space plan working group. There was a memo in here, I believe, from
Just an email, but from Bruce Hunter suggesting that it might be beneficial for the organizations that are involved to have alternate folks available to serve on that committee. So basically giving them the option to appoint alternate members is what he was looking for.
And do you have thoughts on that?
Well, I understand the sentiment, but I think it might be a bit complicated to have multiple people switching back and forth and having that broad of a representation, having 14, 15, 16 people on the committee. I think that would be better, in my view, just given the nature of the work they're doing, which is different than the Fairgrounds Committee, admittedly, to have just one representative. But really, it's up to the board if you want to make that accommodation or not.
This is Sean. I don't see it necessary, and I don't think it was needed when we, maybe the work's different from the Fairgrounds Working Group, but you know, same groups of people. And if somebody couldn't make it, they made their comments known in the preset agenda through email. I don't think it's a necessary thing for us to have to monitor for that group or committee.
I would second what Sean and Eric just said. I agree.
My issue is if you have alternates, like we do on the planning board, for instance, the alternates come and attend the meetings, they participate, they give input, they process things, they come prepared, and they vote if somebody's not there.
But this is not a voting group.
Well, yes, but in a second. So the alternates are full participants except for voting. And so this is already a committee, I think, of 9 people. So if we provide an alternate for each one, now we've just made a committee of 18 people who can all be there having a voice and participating. And that's a really large group. And I think that's unwieldy for asking anybody to manage.
Yeah.
And I know you and Jerry did the lion's work of pulling that other group together. And I think that's too much to put on people. So I like the idea of having people let the, you know, kind of when you start meeting, like many other groups have done, find out when people can meet. So
There
if-
will always be a public comment section, and any member of a committee that is not the appointee can attend and make a public comment also.
Right.
As the way we set this up in our last meeting, so.
Yeah,
I would like to reopen the vote on the open space committee from last week.
okay, let's see.
For many reasons. First of all,
Was it a unanimous vote?
nope,
Who voted against it?
You did.
You're right, I did. For a different reason. Yes. Okay. So I can't reopen it. So first you'd have to ask for a motion to reopen.
I'd like to make a motion to reopen the vote for the open space committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Dave has seconded it. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
So
of-
my
We
reasons
have to
are.
vote on it.
We have to vote on it.
Oh,
We just voted.
gotcha.
We have to vote to
Okay,
reopen it.
gotcha,
If
gotcha,
it,
gotcha,
if it is voted on, then we can
gotcha.
reopen it and discuss it.
Thank you.
All those in favor of reopening the vote on the open space committee? All those opposed? Yes, that's just me. Okay. 4-1, you voted affirmative and affirmative?
No, it was not affirmative.
Okay,
Sorry.
so I had 3, were you affirmative?
I was, yes.
So 3 affirmative, 2 opposed, Keegan and Woodson. We can reopen it if you would like.
Okay. So I voted for the committee because I wanted public meetings and a public vote on what the outcome was. But there's $116,000 in open space budget. There's really only one question is what do we spend it on? I have been a very loud person against open space taking money from the taxpayers to purchase property. And we need something tangible to do with that money, but I don't want engineers hired. I don't want moderators hired. I don't want landscape architects hired to look at that topic. It's like we have $116,000. There's only a couple of places that it might make sense, in my opinion, and I think this is public meetings and not a committee. I've seen the committees meeting and meeting and meeting. We just need, maybe something that makes sense to do with $116,000 by next year when we vote. We have 12% of Readfield that is already protected property, and those are donations of property. Those are cemeteries, those are Kennebec Land Trust, Carlton Pond, trails, you name it. And we have been very fortunate to have what we have, and we have a lot to take care of already. And it's just, I only see maybe two options: either put that money in the fairgrounds, which is what we're doing with open space, or possibly a playground at the beach, which is our most highly visited open space property. But I don't think a giant committee like we've had in the past to talk about this very simple expenditure that's not really a whole lot of money is necessary.
Is there a motion you want to make?
I would like to make a motion to re-vote on the open space committee.
Do you mean having one in general? Oh,
Because that's what we voted on last time. Yes. Yeah, whether we have a committee or don't have a committee. Yes.
so if we don't have a committee, how do you, what's the alternative you're proposing? I
We have
guess?
public meetings with residents, a broad-based thing of residents. There's only a couple things that make sense. And if the fairgrounds pass, that seems like something that needs a whole lot of money. That might make sense, but we hear it from the people, not from committees that meet and meet and meet. Just the residents. It only makes sense to do this in a couple of places. There's not a lot of money. There's not a whole lot of options. We don't want to create another multi-$100,000 project. We just need to know what to do with this $116,000 and keep one more, like no more money going into just buy property in case sometime in the future. We have,
Okay,
More
I
than-
think you're repeating yourself, so
but
we have
we
the idea.
have a majority of people in this town that are close to retirement age or retirement age. We need young people buying property.
So I'll make a
developing
motion
things.
to approve the open space working group as presented at our last meeting.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Is there just further discussion? We've heard from Carol.
I guess,
I just feel like the cart's before the horse a little bit, because my whole reason for that committee was I voiced my concerns about hanging that money out there with no purpose. So I felt like the committee would put a purpose to the money,
Mhm.
and then we can do something and take some action. So that was, are we all on the same page with
That is,
the purpose of this?
yes, the purpose, as I understand it, is to take the current plan, which was written in 2005, so it's 19 years old, and to revise it and bring it up to date. And that plan does not talk about spending money, and that plan and that committee has absolutely no authority over spending that money. That authority comes from town meeting vote, which comes from the select board putting it on the warrant, which comes from the budget committee talking about it and making a proposal, which comes from some group or department or the town manager making a proposal of how to spend that money, or
So,
to not spend it or whatever. So this committee has nothing to do with that.
so in essence, we will form the basis or the charge of what the committee is to do.
Yes, that was in that
It's in that
document.
document,
That's
which
not-
the tasks are to assess, the six tasks are assess the location status, quality, value of open space and recreational resource in Readfield, envision the future needs and priorities for the open space in Readfield, consider how to best support and protect open space, hold public meetings and pursue outreach to solicit input from the community on matters concerning open space, recommend open space plan updates to the select board for review and approval, and report to the select board quarterly.
And that makes sense to me because it's really doing what you're saying you want done, Carol. It's getting the public. These are public meetings, and I think it makes sense to get a, I mean, you've made it clear how you feel about it, and
Uh-huh.
that's certainly fine, but I think we need to get a sense how a lot of other people feel about it. And I think that's what the committee's for, and so I'm fine with it. I think
I
it
don't
makes
mean to
total sense.
drag this discussion out on this question, but I think we're hitting basically a lot of the things that we're gonna get into there.
Yeah.
So,
But that description of the 6 is very far reaching.
Well, it's recommendations,
far-reaching.
it's recommendations for a policy. And the policy is for the select board, which changes every year in membership. People leave, people come in, sometimes people get elected, sometimes people die. And whatever select board that is, will look at that document and use that as policy to interpret requests that are made and to hold public discussion and to place things on the warrant. And so the primary way that we've always discussed about that kind of money being spent that's in the open space fund is to assist in purchasing property, not to purchase property and not to own property. But let's say that a farm was going to come up and go for sale to become a development of 35 houses. And so we might be able to take some of that money with taxpayer approval and buy a right to
Easement.
an easement to hold off on that, to see if we can raise funds from other places like Kennebec Land Trust or wherever to preserve that land. Not that the town would ever be trying to buy a piece of land like that. That's what towns typically spend those funds on. And so those all require discussion and votes to happen. And if you don't have any money, then you can't do that. So then those lands are just lost without anyone having an opportunity. So that's the kinds of things that people typically devote that money for. But the crux of this plan as it stands now is that identified where the open space in town is. And it's not current because 19 years have passed and things have changed.
Okay, here's the current
Sharon,
list.
do you have a comment?
Go ahead.
Yep.
This is from the town website of where our open space is located.
So the current open space plan was created in 2006. It was designed to be used for 10 to 20 years. As Catherine mentioned, it has basically met its expiration. It does need to be updated. The inventory on it is horribly inaccurate. There have been some additions, there's been some subtractions. So that's one of the reasons that it definitely does need to be updated, to just have a proper inventory. And then some of the recommendations on there have been accomplished. So they're no longer valid because the town has gone forward with them. Some of them I would think the town probably no longer wants to pursue. So those should probably be removed. Obviously, that's up to the residents and the committee. And some of them are actually illegal now. So we probably should update that document to conform with the laws. But it's old. It was made in 2006. It's 18 years. It was designed for 10 to 20 years. It's lived its life. It's time to be updated. And I think a committee is probably the proper way of doing that, with input definitely from residents and from people in town, absolutely. But it's old, it's outdated. It needs to be updated.
So my preference, besides the committee, was next year on the warrant, There's a question, sole question, do you want to see the town spend money on acquiring open space or expanding open space? It's been on the warrant every year, and under my watch, went from 10,000 a year to 50,000 a year.
That question's never been on the warrant, Ken.
It's
I
been
think she said
couched
she'd
in
like
with
to see
12
that.
other things hidden, and it went from 10,000 when I started the select board to 50,000 with no discussion from us. We asked for it to be.
Okay, I'm gonna
split- No,
call this,
wait.
no, that's
No.
inaccurate, Carolyn, I'm
No.
going to
It is
cut you off.
100%
The
accurate.
money
is
was
not- it
there,
was
but there was
not
no
hidden.
question.
It
was
was
not hidden.
lumped into capital improvements, and
But
we
not to
asked for it to
purchase
be.
property, which is what you just said.
Okay, I'm gonna call for the vote. So the motion on the floor is to accept the committee as proposed in the last meeting as it was written. All those in favor? All those opposed? I'm opposed as Doran-Boss. Did I get that correct, Dave?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, moving on. So that was item 24-116.
Yeah.
So now we're on to new business, and we took care of the first item previously.
It's abatement time.
We're on to item 24-120, consider property tax abatements for map and lot 142-001 and 105-021. I believe these were for multiple properties as noted in our packet. Eric, or maybe the chair of the assessor board?
Sure. Any abatements that go beyond the previous fiscal year need to be reviewed and approved by the select board. They can only go back so far, usually 2 or 3 years. And so what you have are prior year abatements that require select board approval. The first was an error when the parcel was conveyed and the acreage was not reduced accordingly. So this is a prior year abatement for inaccurate assessment. The next two are for an inappropriate, basically a very tiny piece of land was attributed to the wrong owner. And so this is a correction going back 2 years. The assessors already approved abatements for both, for all 3 of these, I should say, for the current fiscal year or the current tax year. And so the 2 amounts amount to less than $16, but the owner requested that we give that back, and so that's what is before the board. And again, it was for a basic small issue of misassigning the ownership.
And I believe he's also owned that piece for several years and been taxed that way, but you can only go back 3 years.
That's correct, Dave. Yep.
So
Yep.
wanted to straighten it out. It's actually cheap.
He's already given us a lot
Right.
more than what we'll be
That's
giving him
right.
back. So
Right,
yeah.
and I assume that this has now been assigned to the correct owner?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and hopefully we weren't double billing it before?
No, we weren't.
Okay,
We weren't.
Just billing the wrong person.
wrong person, okay.
Can I make a motion on that? one?
Absolutely, we can do
So
them all together if you'd
I
like.
would love to. I would like to make a motion to accept the abatements for Gary Violet for tax years 22-23 and 21-22. I think the total is $15.30.
Second,
I think it's correct.
I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is unanimous. Do we have a motion for the third abatement?
Sure, I'll make a motion to accept the abatement to the Converies for, which is lost it.
9324.
For 9324, for the tax year 22-23.
second,
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. All right. I won't point out the time to anybody, but it is 7:24.
So we need to sign.
We are up to item 24-121, discuss outreach and education for the upcoming June 11th town meeting. This would be from Eric?
Okay, so I'll just run through this quickly. A lot of this stuff is just in process. We recognize, of course, the need for a lot of outreach, and we've been continuing to improve our public outreach and communication process over the last several years. The biggest change this year is the addition of a second public hearing. Typically, we would have a public hearing 2 or 3 weeks before the vote. But in order to accommodate those folks that are voting 30+ days early, we have a public hearing before absentee ballots become available. So that's important to know, and that would be the May 8th public hearing. And then May 29th, we will have another public hearing. The content should be identical for both of those, but the difference here is that we have both instead of just the one. They're both at 6:30 p.m. They're both available on the website through Zoom or in person. All the meeting information will be provided in advance. We also have public comment that can be taken for those meetings or just in general through the website for the public comment form. So we have lots of different ways for people to participate. I will also encourage folks to watch any of the meeting videos, go to the Budget Committee website, and all of our backup, all the meeting detail is there listed out. So we have just a lot of information. The budget summary sheets are a good place to look for summary information as you go through the different drafts of the budget. It's important to note town meeting coming up on June 11th, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Absentee ballots will be available before that time. I think it's the 13th is when we expect to have them available. We have to wait for the school sometimes to get their information to us, but all of these things, we're trying to get this information out multiple ways. So we use our website, the information is posted there. We also do direct mailings, and I'm working on pulling that together this week. Our newsletter that we kind of send out, which is similar to the schools newsprint style publication. So that's coming together. We also will use direct email alerts and Facebook and other social media. So we really are trying to saturate as much as we possibly can this information so people are aware of what's going on. I will point out that at those 2 public hearings, we will have roughly half an hour to talk about the 2 special projects that we'll be voting on. The Fairgrounds project and the Church Road sidewalk, probably 15 minutes apiece for a brief presentation and some questions. It seems as though we're having a change in how people engage in town. We're having a lot more people watch the YouTube videos than are actually attending the meetings, which is interesting. I think that that's convenient. They can go when they want. They can do it in their pajamas.
They can come to the meeting in their pajamas.
They can come to the meeting in the pajamas, and we encourage them to, right?
And then
Something to
Eric
think about.
will.
I am not going in my pajamas.
But we are seeing
Careful what you
changes in
ask.
how people
That's right.
engage. So we're trying to respond to that. And I think that getting information out there has become, more and more challenging as things change. It used to be people would come, you can talk to them, and that would be the end of it. But now we're having to broaden out. But I think we're doing a very good job of responding to that and using multiple digital resources to make that happen. And I again want to thank Bill and his staff there for the work they do to help with the public outreach when it comes to the YouTube videos, also the PEG station. So that's another really important piece of this. So those are some of the big things that I've been talking about. Another item that's worth noting is the candidates night. That's going to be on May 13th at 6:30 p.m. And that's live. We will be sending out notices about that, asking for any public questions that might come in. Although it seems when we get things aggregated, we have a lot of the same questions coming in year over year. So if there's any specific questions to, the special projects that we're looking at, those might be brought up. But we'll be doing a couple of things there. Again, soliciting public input, highlighting some of the special projects, but really a lot of the core questions will be likely the same because people have the same concerns year over year about what people's priorities are, long-term goals, how they feel about capital planning, things like that. But that's another important event for town meeting.
That's also for school board candidates, correct?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah, thank you for
And can you
adding
just
that.
give us an idea about how long each candidate will have, or how long each session is going to be?
I don't recall. Usually we try to move through the discussion in about an hour for each board. But it
Okay.
depends. If we have 5 members for the select board and 1 for school board, we would treat it differently than if we had 3 and 3 or 2 and 3 or whatever. So
And we have 3 people running for select board. Do we know if we have any candidates running for school board?
we have at least 2. We have
least
at
two.
least 2. Yep.
So-
Actually, if we look at give me 1 second here, I'll tell you exactly what we
So we
have.
probably don't need an hour each if you only have 3 or 2
We have-
candidates.
Yeah, we have 3 for select board and 2 for school board.
And there's 2
So,
school board
There are
positions?
2, yes.
Are there 2 positions?
No, I
Two-
thought there,
2 positions.
2 positions.
oh, there are. And we have 2 people running?
2 positions, 2 people.
Wow, this is an improvement.
Could be.
That's great.
No, right.
Yes, so we elect 2 for their terms. So in any event, the outreach is ongoing. We don't, I included in the packet the notice we usually put in the advertiser. The advertiser is, I don't know what's going on. I'm not sure if it's defunct or what, but
Right.
I've sent out emails and gotten nothing back. So that isn't going to be an outreach method that we will have. I do not intend to put this in the Kennebec Journal because this publication would probably cost us $400, which is a large part of our advertising budget.
For the
and
year.
For a very small readership, I'll put it that way. So I think that that's just changing times, right? People are absorbing more online resources, less print media. And again, I don't know what the deal is. Does anybody here know what happened with the advertiser?
Last year, he was looking to do an online version.
Okay, well, there we go.
But that was a while ago, and I'm not convinced that's viable.
Sure, thanks, Sharon. Yeah, no, so in any event, I included this information because it's another outreach method that we had used, but won't be available this year, but we'll find other ways to get the word out. Yeah, that's it. We should have the final draft of that newsprint mailer ready by the end of this week. I'm hoping to have it printed and out next week, which means we should have it in time for the meeting on May 8th in people's mailboxes early that
And
week.
that'll go out with the every door direct mail, so it'll get to everybody.
Yes, provided the post office holds up their end of the deal, which I think they will, but
And like, are we, there's one of the meetings, the budget discussion or the warrant public meeting, that if we can't make that, we don't need to notify to anybody, do we?
Yeah, please let me
Oh,
know.
we do. Okay.
I'll just do that now. I was gonna do it at the end, but we have actually 5 meetings in May. They're not, the candidates night, of course, is not required unless you are running, and then it is required. Well, I guess it's not
It's
required.
encouraged.
If you don't show up, you're sending a message. So of course, that does make it optional. So we are meeting on Monday, the 6th. And that is our next meeting, correct?
the
'Cause this
next
is
select board meeting.
Next select board meeting. And then that Wednesday, just 2 nights later, is our budget committee joint meeting, which is the presentation of the warrant. And this is the informational only. People can give comments, but nothing will change. But it's good for us to hear that. And then the following Monday, just 5 days later, is candidates night. Then Monday, the 20th is our regular meeting, and Wednesday, the 29th is the second budget joint committee meeting to do the same thing as we're doing on the 8th. And if you can't make it, that is okay on those, but it would look better if there are at least several of us who can come to those joint meetings.
So you said the second, what was on the 29th?
Another joint meeting with the budget committee.
I thought that was the second public hearing. Did I read that?
It is a public hearing,
Oh,
but it's the
that's-
budget committee and the
same
select
thing.
board budget
Okay,
public hearing to do the warrant.
gotcha.
Because statutorily, we have to do it within so many days of the election. Is that correct?
Excuse me.
Okay. got it.
Yes, and in the way we had done it before was also appropriate, but we doubled for the,
But we did it this way to meet more of the needs of the public who are voting absentee, because if they're voting and then we give them the information afterwards, it seemed backwards.
yeah, and if we give it too early, people that vote in person aren't really paying attention, and so they need to have an opportunity as well. So
So double duty for us.
double duty.
But then starting in July, we'll meet just once a month for several months, so you'll get some time off.
So May 29th, I know I
Boy.
can't attend, is the only one.
Okay, thanks for letting me know that.
We'll only have one meeting in June too, right?
I'm not certain what, no, we have two, because the second meeting, we're meeting with the budget committee to do capital investment planning again. Sorry.
Not going to camp that week.
Okay,
Water's too cold anyway.
Yeah.
thank you to Eric and all of the town office employees who are working on that mailer. That's a big thing, and I know it's appreciated by the public. I've seen multiple people carry it into the polls and put it down right next to them so they know which ones they're voting on and what they wanted to do. So that's excellent. Moving on to item 24-122, set the date for the annual roadside cleanup. And we had the flyer from COVID
2020.
in here.
Yeah. And the reason I included that is because that was when things changed. We went from doing it on a certain day and a certain time to doing it kind of sometime during the month. And I think that involvement has kind of flagged a little bit as a result of that. I also wanted to just remind people that John Parent was a big part of starting this, and you know, this is continuing on, I hope, in some way in his memory. What I would recommend is that we do go back to trying to set a specific day, a weekend day in May. And then if people can't make it, then they can go online and try to pick a road. But I would encourage folks to do or encourage the town to go back to doing that single day. And that way we can try to get more groups involved and give people a focal point for this process. So.
And we did that, was it Sign Up Genius?
We did that on Sign Up Genius, and we can continue to do that, but I still would encourage people to look at a single
Right.
day. Yeah.
Also, to sign up before we put stuff out?
Yes, and we do need to get the signs out. Is that what you're saying?
So in order for them to pick up something, you have to sign up?
No, no, no.
No, this is
So-
for people.
No, so what we did the last 3 years, I think, was we had a list of all the town roads and people could pick a road they were gonna do and put their name next to it. And that worked really great the first year when we were in the middle of COVID. And then it has dropped off since then, so the roads really didn't get cleaned up much. Except by a few dedicated people who do it whether we're doing this event or not. So I think the idea is to still have that so people can sign up if they prefer to do it at their leisure, but to have an actual event date. I think we used to do it, I can't remember, did we start early, like at 8?
Yeah, it was usually around 8 to noon was the kind of the block, and we would have someone bring sandwiches or snacks or something. But
Yeah,
that was
John used to
John
host that.
donating that stuff. So
Right,
yeah.
so the idea is to have people meet at the fairgrounds and we would have bags and the grabber
Bags,
thingies.
gloves,
And
grabbers,
vests.
orange.
And
vests,
we
all
gave
that,
people
yeah.
vests so they wouldn't be in as much danger walking along the side of the roads, and then people would go out and they could bring the items back in the plastic bag and leave it, and someone would take it to the transfer station. I know Ralph did that several years. And then, or you could take it to the transfer station and Karen would know that you were doing this, so it was okay to bring it in.
So I was totally misunderstanding what this was, because I've been in towns where they have roadside pickup of your stuff that you put out. This is people walking streets and picking up awesome.
Right, so this is walking along the
Okay.
side of the road, like kind of down in the ditches. Yes, we
Yeah.
haven't done it since we've been on the
Picking
board.
up nips.
It's just been kind of virtual.
And it's needed because you
Picking
walk the
up
streets
nips,
and
Right, and we
Man.
tried to just do the town roads in the past, which always leaves Route 17 and 41 pretty messy. But there are some people who walk those roads who live on them, who have done some limited cleanup. But just getting the town roads and. you know,
And we usually do North
separating
Road
out-
as well because of the transfer station area, but.
Right. There's some returnables that you find and some really
Mhm.
interesting items. And if there are things that were too big,
There
we
are.
have them,
there's.
we have
just the
people just
sidewalk.
report back what the, like tires or mattresses or big metal objects. And then Eric sends Matt and Ben out to get them the next week and bring them to the transfer station. So we don't want people hefting stuff out of the ditch that, doesn't easily go in a bag.
Yeah, just flag it for us and we'll take care of it.
So I guess our charge now is to, one, pick a date, and then two, encourage people in the month of May, when we're already committing ourselves to 5 different dates, to try and participate if at all possible. And of course, the later we do this, the more the black flies are out, so.
And the reason for the springtime is because of the visibility with not having the vegetation.
Right.
So
So
It's also
earlier is
very
always
mucky.
better.
We
The
can
ditches
probably
are
rule out
very
Memorial
mucky.
Weekend.
I
right?
have.
Do it what?
I said probably rule out Memorial Weekend
I don't have a single day available.
and
the
Mother's Day
in May,
weekend.
so
Right.
Which is
Paul-
the 12th.
It's the
And
12th.
so the
we do it.
first
Yeah.
one is the
It's not
third?
popular.
In
So
between
the 4th or the
Softball,
18th,
baseball.
Are you on Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday
So the 4th is a Saturday of May? Yep. Okay.
and the 18th.
So the 4th
Star
through the
Wars
18th.
Day.
Oh, it is? Oh, May.
May the 4th be with you. Well, we know what generation Eric is from. The cool one.
Trekkie.
Well, we got a Boy Scout camp out, and they're doing a May the 4th camp out, so it's all intergalactic themes and stuff. So,
Oh,
so I won't
you
be there on the
have-
4th, but you can
Yeah.
please feel free to. I'll do it some other weekend if that's when you
Maybe is
choose.
it less muddy by the 18th?
So why don't we pick the 18th when there's a chance that maybe, and if, I'm asking you to come, I think it is also good to ask, if we're gonna do it, which is essentially a month from now, let's ask all the other boards and committees if they could pick a small group to come and be the roadside cleanup group from Age Friendly, and one from Trails, and one from Conservation, and one from Solid Waste, and maybe that'll help to encourage people to just pitch in a little bit more. It certainly doesn't have to be all of us, and it doesn't have to be for the whole time. You come and we pick a road. I want to do Old Kents Hill Road. So you walk up, you walk back, you're done. You don't
Well,
have
I
to
was
stay.
looking for something to surprise my wife with on her anniversary, so.
Oh, no. Well, we won't be seeing you that day. So are we okay with May 18th? And Eric and Kristen put a flyer together, or Angelica?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take care of it. Yeah.
Okay. And we'll get as many people as we can there.
And 8 to noon?
8 to noon? Yeah.
So I'll do the fire station.
And yes, so you've got a bunch of dates. You probably want to put up the 8th and the 29th. Those public hearings. That's great. And thank you for doing that. I think that's a big help for people that are on this end of town.
Cool.
Okay. Moving on to the next item of business, we need to sign the final town meeting warrant, and we need to sign the RSU 38 warrant and notice of election. And while we're passing that around to sign, does anyone have anything other than what we've already discussed for future?
Just have a comment on this warrant is slightly different in one spot on Article 13. The warrant proper, the language was amended because we had something in there that said that the amounts in Article 13 would be carried forward. That was an error. So that language was stricken. So the intent, as with all the other items, except for the capital reserves or special reserves, is that that money would not carry over. So I did correct that. So that's one change. The other change that is worth noting, it's not included here, but I did put it up on the website as an attachment, as an addendum, is that the draft that you signed had the version of the sidewalk plan that showed the 3. I do have now the version that shows just the 1 speed table at the
Oh, good.
crosswalk. So that will be included, the accurate one will be included in here. So it's not with this one you'll be signing, but I wanted to point that change out because that is different than what you had signed or what you had voted to approve previously. So
What we're signing is correct,
what you're signing is correct.
but it's not what we had seen before as the 2 changes you just noted.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
is everybody clear on that? Okay.
Okay.
So I
There you
won't
are.
adjourn the meeting until we're done signing.
And then we have the school board, and this is just something that we have to, or you guys have to sign in order to make sure that there's proper notice of the meetings. And so this one, I just want to, 22nd.
The public is going to see this one, so use the signature you
you
want
go.
most people to see. It didn't change Sean's at all.
No, that won't change mine either.
Oh, so I can use my own name now. Okay.
Did the school board finish their
They did.
Okay.
And let's see, Eric, it came
So we're
out,
signing under the school board.
did we end up with
down.
a 7% increase instead of 7 point something?
Yeah, I think it was 7.8.
7.8 instead of 8.6 or something.
Yeah, and they started at over 10,
Started
so
at
it was
11.
a good downward trend, but still, still more than we would like, but everything seems to be up. So they did a fair amount of work. They had some difficult decisions to make. I watched a couple of those meetings, and it was hard for them. So I really do appreciate the work they did, the work that our representatives
Yeah.
did to advocate for responsible spending, and I think they struck a good balance. But
Yeah, I was grateful for Rebecca, Sean, and Patricia's comments.
And just following up on that, has the county made a final decision yet?
I don't know. They had a special public hearing, but it didn't look as though there was going to be a lot of relief. I think that in the best case scenario, they were still looking at over 25%, and that would be best case scenario, and I don't know where they're gonna land.
Okay, the last thing I had read in the paper was that the commissioners had made 3 or 4 different recommendations back to the budget committee, and the process is whatever the budget committee decides to do with that, that is it. So it doesn't go back to the commissioners for another approval. So if the budget committee agreed with them or disagreed or changed it to something else, that's the final amount. And it was looking like it was 330,000 instead of 450. That's kind of what I'm remembering. So, but I hadn't heard. So, okay. Anything else? We have a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
moved and seconded, discussion. All those in favor of leaving 10 minutes early? Approved.
5. Yeah.